Is there some other stuff you remember, like the purple links? There were some interesting design decisions that to kind of come up that we have today or we don't have today that were temporary.
So I made the background gray. I hated reading text on white backgrounds, and so I made the background gray. Everybody
Do you regret?
No.
Do you regret this?
No. That decision I think has been reversed. But now I'm happy though because now dark mode is the thing. So
it wasn't about gray. It was just you didn't want a white background.
Strain my eyes.
Strain your eyes. Interesting. And then there's a bunch of other decisions. I'm sure there's an interesting history of the development of HTML and CSS and how those interface and JavaScript. And then there's this whole Java applet thing.
Well, the big one probably JavaScript. CSS was after me, so that was not me. But JavaScript was the big. JavaScript maybe was the biggest of the whole thing. That was us, and that was basically a bet. It was a bet on two things. One is that the world wanted a new front end scripting language, and then the other was I thought at the time the world wanted a new back end scripting language. So JavaScript was designed from the beginning to be both front end and back end. And then it failed as a backend scripting language, and Java won for a long time, and then Python, Perl, and other things, PHP, and Ruby. But now JavaScript is back, and so
I wonder if everything in the end will run on JavaScript.
It seems like it is the. And by the way, let me give a shout out to Brendan Eich, was the basically the one man inventor of JavaScript.
If you're interested to learn more about Brendan Eich, he's been on this podcast previously.
Exactly. So he wrote JavaScript over a summer, and I think it is fair. It is fair to say now that it's the most widely used language in the world, and it seems to only be gaining in its range of adoption.
In the software world, there's quite a few stories of somebody over a weekend, or over a week, or over a summer, writing some of the most impactful, revolutionary pieces of software ever.
Well, look,
that should be inspiring. Yes,
very inspiring. I'll give you another one. SSL. So SSL was the security protocol. That was us, and that was a crazy idea at the time, which was let's take all the native protocols and let's wrap them in a security wrapper. That was a guy named Kip Hickman who wrote that over a summer. One guy. And then look, today, sitting here today, like the transformer, like at Google, was a small handful of people. And then, the number of people who did like the core work on GPT, it's not that many people. It's a pretty small handful of people. And so, yeah, the pattern in software repeatedly over a very long time has been, Jeff Bezos always had the 2 pizza rule for teams at Amazon, which is any team needs to be able to be fed with 2 pizzas. If you need the 3rd pizza, you have too many people. And I think it's actually the 1 pizza rule.
Yeah.
For the really creative work, I think it's 2 people, 3 people.
Well, you see that with certain open source projects. Like so much is done by like 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
Like it's so incredible, and that's why you see that gives me so much hope about the open source movement in this new age of AI. Where just recently having had a conversation with Mark Zuckerberg of all people, who's all in on open source, which is so interesting to see and so inspiring to see, because like releasing these models, it is scary, it is potentially very dangerous, and we'll talk about that. But it's also, if you believe in the goodness of most people and in the skill set of most people and the desire to do good in the world, that's really exciting, because it's not putting these models into the centralized control of big corporations, the government, and so on. It's putting it in the hands of a teenage kid with like a dream in his eyes. I don't know. That's beautiful.
And look, this stuff, AI ought to make the individual coder obviously far more productive, right? By like, 1,000x or something. And so you ought to open source, like not just the future of open source AI, but the future of open source everything. We ought to have a world now of super coders, right? Who are building things as open source with 1 or 2 people that were inconceivable, 5 years ago. The level of kind of hyper productivity we're going to get out of our best and brightest, I think, is going to go way up.